We've got 26 new Mega Evolutions thanks to Pokémon Legends Z-A, and while we got some pretty incredible new Pokémon, we also have some new Mega Evolutions that look like they're gonna be pretty bad. Please join me as I go over the top 5 worst new Mega Evolutions for the future of competitive Pokémon, and how they might be able to be saved before fading into utter obscurity. Before we get into our list, I actually want to talk about my honorable mention, which is Mega Eelektross. I just don't like the minimal shift to bulk, and it just didn't get enough speed, but it also got too much speed at the same time, if that makes sense. It puts Eelektross in the same weird, bizarro speed tier as Meganium, where you're too fast for Trick Room, and you're too slow for Tailwind, and the real bummer is that Eelektross used to have a great speed stat for Trick Room, and they just kind of ruined it, and they didn't give it much bulk to add to that. While Eelektross does indeed get the move Coil, which can be good. It can set up its attack and defense. It can help circumvent that bulk issue that I'm talking about and make it quite a feisty physical attack sweeper. But the reason why I don't like Coil as a setup move necessarily is because physical electric types are just historically not that great, and they don't have very good options. We pretty much have Wild Charge and we have Thunder Punch, and that's it, and both are less than 100 base power. That kind of hampers the offensive pressure that Eelektross could be delivering, especially if you went for the special attacking side, which is at 135, where we have Thunderbolt, which is a base 90 power, same as Wild Charge, but with 0 drawbacks. We're not taking any chip damage when we're using Thunderbolt. Or even a move like Thunder if you were to run this on a rain team so that you could get past the 70% accuracy. The one thing going for Eelektross though is it does have a pretty good physical set. It has a lot of the big ticket items like Drain Punch, Dragon Claw, Knockoff, Awesome. I just really greatly dislike when physical attackers like this can barely use their own stab moves, or have to use subpar stab moves in comparison. And one of the few Pokemon that actually broke the mold of being a good physical attacking electric type Pokemon was Iron Hands, but it was because of that low speed and that really incredible bulk that it was able to get around having access to only Thunder Punch and Wild Charge as your main attacking moves, which Eelektross doesn't have the bulk and it doesn't have that low speed anymore, so it just isn't there. For me, there's two things for Mega Eelektross that we need to be good still. First, it has to keep Levitate. That is one of the best abilities, and that's what made Eelektross really relevant to the most degree. Being immune to ground makes it so that Eelektross as a mono electric type doesn't have any types that can hit it for super effective, besides Pokemon with Mold Breaker. And second, I need Game Freak to finally decide that Wild Charge is the same move as Flare Blitz, and why they aren't treated the same or have the same base power makes absolutely no sense to me. Why does Game Freak hate physical electric type Pokemon so much? I don't think we will ever know the answer to any of those questions, but we need it fixed for the next game. Number 5, I have Mega Meganium. I really wanted to like this one. The Fairy type edition is so cool. The bulk added, the special attack edition is so fantastic. But as I sat with this one, the more I'm scared about how this Pokemon is actually turning out to be a Namorous Therian version number 2. The base Pokemon, Meganium Standard, is just so dreadful, even if my comments from the last video disagree strongly with me on that. Running Meganium on any team for any reason, for any legitimate desire to win, is like trying to win a marathon but you tied a 50-pound weight to your ankles. The bulk is nice, the special attack is incredible, but the speed is just so lackluster, and it thrusts Mega Meganium into a question mark zone. Am I running this on Trick Room and gonna lose to all the actual hard Trick Room sweepers? Or am I running this in Tailwind and I'm gonna lose to all the actual faster Pokemon when my opponent runs Tailwind? On top of that, being 4 times weak to any type in general really puts you in a bad spot, especially since Mega Meganium probably won't be able to run Terra, and like I said last video, Sneasler's right there, and it is going to punish Mega Meganium game in and game out. And even worse, if that all wasn't enough, Mega Meganium has an awful matchup into Steel types in general. Both of its stab moves are resisted by Steel types, and it gets hit for super effective by Steel. Pokemon like Corviknight or even Mega Skarmory absolutely dog walk Mega Meganium. I don't see any way that these matchups will ever be favorable, and it'll pretty much be a one-sided onslaught with Meganium being turned into a chopped salad. But now, there might be one way to save this Pokemon, and this was an option that was raised up from comments I got in my last video where I went over these Pokemon, and that's getting the ability Triage. This is an ability where Pokemon's healing moves have their priority ability increased by 3. While this is Comfey's signature ability, this actually would really benefit Mega Meganium and help it to circumvent that terrible base speed of 80. The big difference between Meganium having this ability and Comfey having this ability is that Meganium actually would be an offensive threat, whereas you see with Comfey, its special attack is only 82 and its physical attack is 52, so this thing isn't applying much offensive pressure. But now switch it over to Meganium and we have a special attack of 143 that can really send this to the moon. Using moves like Giga Drain, we now can have a +3 priority on Giga Drain, and if Game Freak is daring enough, they could even give it Draining Kiss to give it a fairy type stab move that does the same thing as Giga Drain. This would then give Mega Meganium options at +3 priority for both of its offensive stab moves, which would open the door for so many more options. I really think Triage could be what saves Meganium if they decide to go that route. We even have Heal Pulse. Meganium already learns Heal Pulse, so you can be a support and an offensive threat at the same time, which would be phenomenal. Next up at number 4, we have Mega Frostlass. It just did not get the spread that it needed. Only +10 to speed from base Frostlass is such a huge loss. It'll never be able to use that massive special attack of 140 because Pokemon like Mega Gengar or Fluttermane or even Qianpao are going to be able to punish it so quickly that it'll get taken down before it even gets a chance to attack. Not to mention Mega Frostlass is actually built to lose to Incineroar, one of the most common used meta Pokemon of all time. Every other game it's going to have to be squaring up against Incineroar, which will be able to use dark moves, fire moves, it can just disrupt with Parting Shot. Like, Incineroar just covers Mega Frostlass up and down 5 ways till Sunday. I think the only option really that could bring Mega Frostlass out of obscurity and put it into a spot where it could actually see a lot of use on a lot of different teams is if they give it the ability Snow Warning. Snow Warning is what sets the snow weather effect, which would make Mega Frostlass a staple Pokemon, as there is no real good snow weather setters. We are seeing Alolan Ninetales get a lot of use right now in Regulation H and VGC, but that's only because it's Regulation H. As soon as we get into the bigger formats, Alolan Ninetales just doesn't cut it anymore. It's not fast enough, it doesn't hit hard enough, and it certainly doesn't have enough bulk to warrant any kind of use, as it's going to be forced to use the Focus Sash, which you're gonna want somewhere else most likely in those bigger formats. So now if we go to Frostlass, it has a higher speed stat, it's got better bulk, and it has an incredible special attack stat, almost double. A little bit less than double, but like, you get the idea of what I'm saying. And then on top of this, Mega Frostlass then gets Aurora Veil, just like Ninetales, so it can set its own screens. You can then set up Blizzard Spam for yourself, and setting the snow weather effect then circumvents Frostlass's kind of lackluster defense because you're getting a 1.5 boost from being in the snow and being an ice type, giving you about a, what would that be, 90, so 135 defense stat. Like, that actually makes Frostlass pretty bulky and a lot scarier. And then on top of all this, it would just then add that another layer where you can have Frostlass be that team synergistic point. This would just make Frostlass so much more versatile, and you can choose when you want to change the weather by choosing when you Mega Evolve. So I see this as a must-have for Frostlass, frankly, and if it gets Snow Warning, it'll be completely off this list for me. I will completely take it off, and it'll probably be somewhere in the middle of the pack, but it would then become a competitive Pokemon staple for anybody wanting to run snow teams. Now for number 3 on our list is Mega Clefable. The biggest problem that I have with Mega Clefable is that it just doesn't move the needle enough from where it was to where it is now. And what I mean by that is that yes, that plus 40 special attack is great to give you a special attack that's on par with Fluttermane. The big difference here is that Fluttermane doesn't have to Mega Evolve and take up that resource to get to that power level. And I think it gets even harder to justify using Mega Clefable when you start looking at the other special attackers that we got even in this new set. Like, if we're talking about Mega Delphox, like, this is a new special attacker that got a incredible buff to speed at 134 and an incredible special attack buff to 159 that makes it an absolute howitzer of a Pokemon. And then when you add Expanding Force to that, and it's in a Psychic Terrain setup, then we are talking about damage that Clefable can only hope to achieve and has really no chance to even hold a feather to this Pokemon. And I think what really drives the nail home that you shouldn't be using Mega Clefable, or it doesn't warrant a slot on the team, is when you look at Togekiss, which fulfills a fairly similar role, not the same, but also has the exact same typing. These two Pokemon are basically the exact same stat spread, except Togekiss doesn't have to use your Mega slot. You can get the same advantage of fairy flying, and you can get the same type of bulk and same type of damage. Now, I will say this as a caveat. I know that in singles, Clefable is an absolute demon because of its ability, Magic Guard. Magic Guard is an ability that stops the damage from spikes or Stealth Rock from hitting that Pokemon. So Mega Clefable, being a flying type, is now immune to both of those and can be a great switch in OU. So for that, I do understand Clefable probably shouldn't be in the bottom 5 if we're talking strictly singles, but I wanted to talk about the comparison of VGC and singles just to really wrap this whole thing up for it. Now, the way that it could be fixed in VGC, if we're talking about a totally nuclear option that I think would absolutely make it usable and probably everyone would use it, is if we gave it Fairy Aura. You know, this is a pretty big reach. This is Xerneas' signature ability, but I mean, why not? The stats aren't that crazy, and it's not like Mega Clefable gets Geomancy like Xerneas gets, so it wouldn't be so broken. But I think above all, what sets Mega Clefable above the 2 worst slots that I picked for this list is the fact that base Clefable still actually serves a great role between Follow Me, and then now you can run a more offensive set with Calm Mind. You can run Icy Wind if you want. You can run Moonblast on top of that. You have a more versatile set where you can be aggressive, you can set up, you can do speed control, you can kind of still fulfill the role without using Mega Evolution, and maybe in double Mega formats in VGC, we could see Clefable getting more love. But for now, I just don't think it has what it takes, but I do think it is better just based off the base Pokemon than our next 2 slots. Moving on to our number 2, we have Mega Pyroar. This one just screams white bread vanilla to me. Pyroar was already a silly Pokemon anyways because its abilities didn't make any sense for what the Pokemon was giving. Why is Pyroar's hidden ability Moxie? 68 physical attack stat versus 109 special attack stat? I wonder what our main damage option should be, Game Freak. I wonder what we're going to be using. Beyond that, while Rivalry makes sense from a Lion perspective, it's such an unreliable ability because why would you want to risk having a 25% debuff to your damage just because your opponent's Pokemon happens to be the opposite gender? For me, to make Mega Pyroar even remotely worth using, there's a list of 3 ideas for abilities that I think would really work well around this mediocre Pokemon. 1, Moxie, but let's make it boost its special attack, kind of like Shadow Rider Calyrex. This immediately fixes the issue with its base form's abilities and gives it a snowball effect in games that your opponent really has to pay attention to. 2, give it Intimidate, but instead this is an Intimidate that lowers your opponent's special attack stats. This one really intrigues me because it would actually give Mega Pyroar a unique tech that no other Pokemon fills. A niche that is so specific that people might actually feel inclined to include Mega Pyroar in a team as a direct counter for some of the more setup heavy special attackers that we see in the format quite often. Or our third option would be to give it Punk Rock, but you can change the name of the ability to be like Mega Roar or Jungle Roar or something Lion Roar. I don't know, I'm not good at names. This would actually give Pyroar a 30% boost to one of its stab moves, Hyper Voice, which is a 90% power normal type sound effect that hits both adjacent foes. This would make Hyper Voice hit like a truck with between stab and the 30% sound based damage boost. And then you could even run a move like Snarl, and this would give it meaningful enough damage after going from 55 and getting a 30% boost on top of that to actually be a nice chunk damage while giving you attack to do damage mitigation against your opponents. And finally, at the number 1 spot for the worst new Mega Evolution, I have Mega Malamar. I'm so heartbroken by this one. I love Mega Malamar's design. I loved the marketing when they introduced it, and how they introduced it was phenomenal. I wanted this Pokemon to be good so bad. But wow, they could not have made this Pokemon look more underwhelming if they tried. I don't know what this Pokemon is even trying to accomplish. We have another mixed attacker, but this one is where base Malamar almost exclusively runs physical attack so that it can take advantage of Contrary. The special defense boost is fine and dandy, but that physical defense without any help from Contrary defense buffs is guaranteed to get OHKO'd by any relatively powerful U-turn or first impression user. I have to imagine that when they made this stat pool, they did design it to keep Contrary, which I think is going to be pivotal for this to actually end up being a good Pokemon. I think of all the ones I put on this list, Malamar has the chance to go from the worst Mega on the entire group of New 26 to being probably a top 10 one if they actually do it right, if they give it the move pool buff and they keep Contrary. talking about the move pool, that's the second point that I need them to fix this Pokemon with. We need a complete move pool overhaul. More specifically, we need special attacks that can actually be used in conjunction with Contrary so that we can actually get some kind of relevant boost. Moves like Psycho Boost, which drops your special attack by 2 stages, Overheat, which drops your special attack by 2 stages, or even Draco Meteor, which does the same thing as the previous 2 moves I mentioned. For all I care, give it all 3 so that it has options to use with this terrible special attack stat and terrible stat spread. Well, there you have it. That's my top 5 worst new Mega Evolutions. Feel free to comment down below about how I got every single one of these ones wrong, what order you think it should be, and who you think the actual worst Mega Evolution is. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the future.